Welcome to the Moviebuff Podcast, where we're going to talk about the film The 39 Steps. This is early Alfred Hitchcock, and it was chosen by our member Matthias, and we're going to discuss all the different things about this movie. We hope you enjoy.
Hi, welcome to the Supermoviebuff Podcast. I'm Patrick, and I'm here with...
Benjamin, that was you. You were going to go.
No,
you were going to
well,
introduce yourself.
you already said my name, so there's no point. Well, I'm Benjamin, and to my left or right, it depends, is...
I'm Mike. On TikTok, I'm Filmman Mike. And then the last one.
And I'm Matthias, and I chose the movie this, not week, but this time. And it's The 39 Steps from Alfred Hitchcock from 1935. This is the first Hitchcock film I ever saw, and it's the one that made me fall in love in his movies. Should I do the story, or are we talking around that? How do we usually do it? I don't
Do the
follow
story.
what you do.
Just give a brief synopsis.
Okay, so this is about a man in England, a Canadian man, who, after a shooting in an outing, he has a girl follow him home, and she tells a story about she is being chased by some agents from other countries, and she doesn't feel safe, so she wonders if he can help her. And I don't think he really believes her. And then in the middle of the night, she goes into his room with a knife in her back and telling him that, I think you have to figure this out. And then he's being chased around England and into Scotland and trying to figure out who killed her and what she's talking about, some information that they are trying to sell to the other countries, and he's trying to find out what that is. So this is one of the first, if not the first. Hitchcock is very famous for any of you who listen to this who doesn't know. Hitchcock is very famous for his innocent man being chased stories, and I think this is the first one where it functions very, very well. He has done some before, I think, but this one, everything fits, to me at least. He is a very likable guy. He's dragged into it by happenstance, and he's just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he ends up being chased by people, and he doesn't really know why or who they are, and so on. And this is like the fourth time I see this, and I still love it. I think it's a fantastic movie. It's a little aged, a little slow at times, but as a Hitchcock fan, I see everything that later on that he perfected in other movies. I think the lead is very charming. Very often in these movies from this time, there is theatrical acting over the top. And I think most of the other actors are that way, but not the lead. And I think the reveal of the bad guy with the finger, I think is brilliant filmmaking. And I also think the ending is one of my favorite endings of Hitchcock film. I don't know what more to say. I think we go to Mike, and then you can talk about it, and then we can get back to me afterwards.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for recommending this film. I love Hitchcock as well, but I had never seen this film before, so I really, really enjoyed it. There were a few things that I really liked about the film. I would say I liked it. I didn't love it quite to the degree that you seem to have loved it, but I thought it was still really, really good on its own 2 feet. I give it probably 3.5 stars, something like that, out of 5, something along those lines. I first of all really liked I liked Robert Donnett's performance as the central character. I thought he was really effective. You said he was really charming. and he had a kind of charisma that I really enjoyed, and I also enjoyed Madeline Carroll as, I want to say her name is Patricia in the movie, who's a kind of girl who helps him along the way. He meets her at one point, and again, they just had a very charming kind of easy chemistry that I really enjoyed. And really, the thing though that I liked the most about this film overall in terms of tone was that it kind of reminded me of a sort of film noir before film noir. Like, there was a lot of film noir elements, and I do love that genre as a whole. I do love the film noir genre, and so there was a lot of elements that kind of I was thinking halfway through, oh, if this was made in 10 more years, this would be something closer at least to Double Indemnity. It would be something more of that kind of tone and that kind of edge. And so the few things that kind of came to my mind in terms of what reminded me of that is, first of all, the central performance by Robert Donnet. A lot of film noir have the sort of innocent man wrongly accused type thing. And then even when his initial client, or the girl who wants his help, who you mentioned, gets murdered early on in the movie, the first thought that came to my head is, oh, she's a femme fatale. She is like the girl from, for example, the Maltese Falcon, the one who's kind of going to be pretty and sort of get the main detective in over his skis, so to speak, and kind of may betray him at the end. That's what I was kind of thinking. Like, oh, I'm not sure if I trust her, and then she wound up being dead. So I was like, well, okay, I guess she was who she said she was. But again, it kind of reminded me of very, very early film noir. And then the ending. You know what I loved about the ending? It was ingenious in the way that the killer gets revealed, but it wasn't cheating. You can catch it. If you pay attention, you can get it. And that is a very hard balancing act to follow in movies. It's usually either too obvious, or it comes so far out of left field that you're like, there wasn't a chance in hell I was going to catch this. It's the second cousin of the butler who showed up in one line once 5 minutes into the movie before you even knew what was going on or anything like that. But the way that I did it is that the ending was ingeniously done, and yet you could do it. You could catch it if you were paying attention. And I thought that was really well done, really smart. Also kind of a beautiful film to look at. I think the cinematography in this film is kind of underrated in the sense that it doesn't draw attention to itself, but it adds flavor to the characters. It adds flavor to the scenarios that they're going through. You feel the desolation when he goes to what to me was a farmhouse that she lived in. It seemed like very kind of rural and countryside. And it's like the cinematography kind of added to that sense of, I have to go in the middle of nowhere in the hopes of eventually being, of outwitting the people that are catching me. And again, very film noir. And I loved that aspect of it. And then, like you mentioned before, is this Hitchcock's best film? No. But for anyone that is a fan of Hitchcock, you can see his early attempts at being Hitchcock. You can see how this movie would eventually become the Henry Fonda film, The Wrong Man, something like that, The Awful Man. I think it's The Wrong Man. Or you can see where it might kind of turn into Rear Window with James Stewart. It's like all the elements that make those movie greats, they're here.
Especially
doesn't quite know how to cook these ingredients just yet. So so thank you very much for recommending it. I really had a good time with it.
Especially North by Northwest. This is the North by Northwest light, basically. Sorry, and her name is Pamela. I would just like to say.
Yeah, maybe even a little bit of Vertigo too, because there's kind of I feel like there's a little bit of Vertigo as well, just in the sense of the protagonist is not a hero. Yeah. He could get in his own way in the same way that James Stewart, his sense of vertigo is what prevents him from always doing the right thing and kind of catching the guy. It's like you got this feeling of like, this guy is not a superhero. He doesn't know what to do in this scenario. He's just trying his best to sort of keep up with everybody. Again, really enjoyed this film. Had a good time with it. Yeah. Anyone else want to weigh in?
So yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I don't know a whole lot about films from this era. Like, really, my film knowledge starts about the 70s. So it's always interesting going back and like watching these movies because I don't have like the insight that like you guys have where you're like comparing it to all these things. The only other Hitchcock movie I've seen is Psycho. So this is like an interesting like jump. It's almost my first Hitchcock movie. If I hadn't seen Psycho. I thought it was like, really beautiful to look at. I just love the black and white and like what you were saying too. Like I thought the acting wasn't kind of over the top. Like there's a lot of like the film noir. You know, it's a lot of like you see, we're gonna take tests. You see, well, this was like a lot more like. They feel like actual people, you know. Really, just I agree with all you guys are saying. I think some things that I picked up on personally was like, for one, I think it was funny like how much everyone in this movie hates their wife. Like, there's so many like lines of dialogue where someone's just like, "Give me an answer." It's like, "Why is my wife fat?" I'm like, dude. Or like in the train, the guy's like, "Look at this underwear." He's like, "Oh, my wife." Like all the women in the movie just have like terrible fates, pretty much. Except for then, like the innkeeper, she gets to like kind of be the hero in a way. She like shoots out those men. So, well, yeah, I thought like the acting was really good. Did any of you guys read the book? Because I guess it's based off a book.
No, I haven't. I didn't even know it was a book actually.
Yeah, so I watched it with Jolene last night, and then she was doing more research into it, like with the book. And she said like the difference in the from the book to the movies. In the book, it's a problem because it's set up that the 39th step is a conspiracy of Jews trying to lead on an assassination, which makes sense why Hitchcock changed that for the movie. But then it turns out that it was actually Germans that were trying to like pull out an assassination. She told me kind of like an allegory of the Franz Ferdinand assassination. So it sounds like the book goes in some like different directions, and the movie really kind of like made it more palpable, just like kind of like, you know, easygoing kind of film. It's been adapted a few times, so it's always interesting because I don't think all the adaptations are remakes as much as like adaptations of like different adaptations of the book. There's like a BBC adaptation that came out like a few years ago or something.
How would you star it if you were going to star it, or maybe?
I think like with you, I'd probably do like a 3.5 out of 5. Like there's a lot I really did like, you know, but like nothing in the movie I think really like grabbed me necessarily. But I think it's just a lot of that is like, I feel like it's pulling a lot from like different influences and things that I'm not like too privy to. Like Jolene, when we were talking about it, like she had like a lot of like understanding of like context and history around some of the stuff that were happening in the movie. Then she'd be like, "Oh, it's like an allegory for this," or like pulling in all these different ideas. And I was just like, "Oh man, like I did not like flew over my head." Or like Mike, how like you're comparing, it's like you two are both comparing, it's like all of Hitchcock's other movies, and she was doing that as well. Like, oh, I can see like the proto Hitchcock and his style like throughout the movie. It was just cool to see because it's like there was a lot of camera tricks and shots and angles that felt modern, like they still use them today. Like the scene, like even like you were talking about Jurassic Park before we got on here, like that scene where she finds the body and she's screaming, and then it cuts to the train. We have that scene in like Jurassic Park Lost World where like the mom finds the dinosaur eating the children, and she starts screaming, and it cuts to like Jeff Goldblum yawning. So like there's like a lot of like things this movie did that we then see like film styling that still carries over in like films now. A lot of us like a lot of fun like cinematography plays. We're like when the guy's like looking over the newspaper at him and just like the close up of the eyes. It's a lot of like fun little things like that that kind of like kept it from feeling too static.
I'm gonna let Benjamin talk in a short while. I'm just gonna say something first. First, my score is 4.5, but that is because nostalgia. It's my first Hitchcock film. I've loved not everything, but I've loved him since this, and when I watched it, everything comes back to me. So it's just like watching, finding out about him for the first time again. But yeah, a lot of those things. It's like in the train when the guy leaves and they are stopping at the station, and Robert Donat is sitting there, and the guy's on the other side, and there are people in front of him. They're walking out and in. So that's the Hitchcock shot where you they talk, and not interesting. But what happening is that you're seeing him in a little thing there, and you follow what he's doing, but the dialogue is something else. And it's very often where you see something that the characters are doing that he shows, but they're talking about other things. Usually, when someone is talking, you're seeing their mouth move, because they're saying shit that you want to hear. No. Hitchcock is interested in that. He's interested in showing this thing because that's what's important. And I love that. And you see that in this movie all over the place. And it's, sorry, Benjamin, I'm going to let you talk now.
Well, it wasn't the first time I've ever seen it. I remember you put it on when I was at your place one time, because the opening of the movie was very, very familiar to me. But I couldn't remember anything else. I think I fell asleep or something. But all in all, I did like the movie. I was very impressed by the direction and the blocking and all of the technicals. It's a very, as with all of his movies, but it's fun to see that he had it this early. How to block a scene, how to stage a scene, how to move the story along. Because the story itself, while I found the two lead actors to be very charming, I liked them, and I liked the scenes, I was very disconnected while watching, but his direction was enough to pull me through. And what I liked about it had the same type of sort of, not mean, but plucky, almost whimsical sense of humor as a Universal Monsters movie. And I mean in regards to like the characters in the background, the way they talk about, as you said before, we have those two people at the train station or in the train, and they're talking about the murder, and he's sitting right beside them, and one of them is reading about the murder, and he says, "Oh, another one was murdered," and the guy next to him says, "Oh, I don't care about that. Can you read me about the big game instead?" Which is pretty funny. But the main star of this movie, I feel, is the direction. And something the movie benefits from that makes it different to other movies from this era, at least from the ones I've seen, is that it sort of takes place in England and, London for, I don't know for how long, maybe 15 minutes. And then the rest of the movie basically takes place in Scotland, or at least a soundstage attempting to look like Scotland. Which, the way the mountains look and the way these cottages look and the way the forts look, it gives the movie a very cozy feeling that I really like. Despite it being a man who's running from the police, it's a very cozy movie. It doesn't feel very serious. It's not very dark. It's not very grim. And Hitchcock eventually would make, as Matthias said before, he's made a lot of innocent man is chased by police or chased by someone for a crime he hasn't committed, and this is a very palpable and light version of that. It's very easy to watch because of his direction. I mean, most of the notes that I made were of like the different tracking shots. There's one shot that I found very impressive where I think we're about 70% through, and it's when the main character, he gets arrested when he's at this assembly hall, and he's trying to pretend as if he's one of the people who's going to make a speech, and then he gets arrested, and then they transport him away, and they're sitting in a car, and the girl is with him. And it's a tracking shot where the camera is outside of the window by the side, and it's following them. Obviously the car isn't moving, but as the dialogue wraps up, the camera turns around the back of the car, and the image turns black, and then it zooms out, and then it's a huge wide shot where the car drives off in the distance, and it's completely seamless. And it's the kind of shot that it's not like I've never seen it before in a movie from the 30s. I have seen it, particularly from the Universal monster movies. They tend to get very creative with their shots, but not in a thriller of this kind. I've not seen it that much, and he does this many times throughout the entire movie. He even does a POV shot. Well, he does more than one. I think he does 3, but he does one again while sitting at the train. He asks one of the other people in the cart he's sitting in, could you give me your newspaper? And the guy gives the newspaper to him, and he accepts it, but it's a POV, and he opens the newspaper like this for the audience to read. But actually, he's not reading it at all. He's looking up above it. He's looking for the police, obviously, because maybe they're patrolling the outside. And the movie's filled with those kinds of things. And as I said before, to me, that is the main star of the movie. If you remove all of that, and it's a very standard of the times thriller, I think the actors would have been able to make it entertaining. But if, as I said before, if you remove Hitchcock from the story completely, it would have been very, very mediocre, in my opinion. So that's what those are my opinions.
I have a question for you, Matthias. You mentioned off air, and you might have even mentioned it here in this session, but not only was this your first Hitchcock film, but you said this is the film that kind of made you fall in love with film, that got you passionate about the genre. Can you talk about why? And
No, it was more that made me fall in love with Hitchcock, and then him more, and so on. I don't know. I can't really put my finger on what made me fall in love with film. Probably Hitchcock, so maybe it is this. I don't know. It's just that I've heard, when I grew up, I'm self-taught. I don't have with everything I know and don't know about movies. I'm self-taught. I don't have a family member that watched a lot of movies that could tell me, oh, you have to see this one, and if you have seen this, you have to see this one. Everything I've seen on my own until later on when I met someone like Benjamin, and he showed me Polish animation from the 80s and 70s and so on. So everything is self-taught. So I've just read about Hitchcock, and then they showed this on television. I watched it and I loved it. So then what I have to do, because this is how I am, is I have to watch everything from a person. So that's my life goal, to watch everything from him. So, it's just that I was like 11 when I saw this. And this is not the movie genre that is perfect for an 11-year-old, I think. It's not. It's very entertaining and very light. But usually you watch action movies or you watch stupid comedies or so on at that age. But for me, it was just, it's hard to say, really. It's just, like Benjamin said, that there are so many shots that you've seen before, but he makes something new about it. I watched it today with two other guys. One person who loves movies, but he doesn't think about them technically. Like me and Benjamin do, because we make movies ourselves, and he commented on that tracking shot that Benjamin talked about, and he was very impressed by that. And I've never heard him talk about a technical shot in anything, and that's what Hitchcock does in everything, especially when he gets the confidence later on to do it. And I think this is the first one where he really does this. And what you said, next year he made a film called Secret Agent with John Gielgud and some others, which is kind of the same thing like this one, but it's not as good. Because I would say, the direction elevates it, but the actors and the script, I would say that it's a better script than just average. Because if you look at other stuff he has done, they don't get this good because they don't have the script there. Do I make sense? I don't know. I want to say so many things, and I don't know if I get to say everything because I'm thinking too much.
That's why you make notes.
I'm sorry?
That's why you should write notes, as I do.
I do write notes, but then I forget about what I've talked about. But yeah.
Well, one thing that I partly liked about the movie and disliked at the same time, because I actually feel like that's what kept me at arm's length from fully engaging with it. It's from 1935, so it's still a somewhat early sound movie. Not super early. You had sound movies from well, 1931, it became the standard. Well, 32. So it's a few years after that, but it still has the same type of... There's a lot of silent scenes, and I don't mean silent in order to build suspense. They are just silent because audio is missing, or it's too low. So you have this, for me at least, I felt like the movie had this awkwardness, this awkward silence in several of the scenes. Not all of them, or even the majority, but I don't know, 35% or something. And after a while, what I like about it is it's from the 30s. I like how it looks. I like how dated it can feel. But all of that silence, after a while, it made those incredible shots sometimes feel like they had no impact because, oh, there's no sound here.
Can I ask you a question about that?
No.
Okay.
No, go on.
Do you mean silence as there is always this ambience in a scene? Do you mean that that's gone as well? Or do you mean that it's just no speaking, no talking?
No, what I mean is... obviously, being a movie from 1935, there's very little in the way of Foley. But even the Universal movies had Foley, the ones from like 32 or 33. And what I mean by those scenes is that those scenes have barely any Foley at all. There's one scene where, and I'm not blaming the movie for it, but there's one scene where when he gets to this cottage and the father who lives there with his wife, not the father, the husband who lives there with his wife. And I just have to comment on the fact that it's obviously a 45-year-old man who is wearing makeup to look 60, which I found kind of funny. But he excuses himself because he doesn't trust him at all. He doesn't trust his story. And he thinks the wife and this new guy is conspiring against him. So he excuses himself. And he says, oh, I have to tend to the cows outside. Oh, I forgot to lock something. And he exits and the camera follows him. And we're outside. And it follows him and he stops by the window. It's a very cool shot, but there's no sound. There's no footsteps. There's barely any sound when he closes the door. And it doesn't ruin anything because I can still put myself in the mind of, it's a movie that is getting close to be 100 years old. It's not that far away from being that old. But that type of silence doesn't always work for me because it feels like, oh, this scene doesn't have the proper impact. And sometimes it barely has any music. It has music in the scenes where there is one rally, there is one where they have a march. What is the word for that? Where it's music in the scene. It's not digestive, dialectic. What's it called? When it's music in the scene. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you're talking about. But I know the term.
Dietetics, something like that. Where what I'm talking about is a full OST, a full score. The movie barely has a score, which isn't really a bad thing. But I feel like a score could have helped with the scenes where it's just dead silent.
I actually disagree with that. I love that there is silence, as well as what you're talking about with the silence of the Foley and so on. I didn't notice that but I was invested in the story because of things. Why I asked about if it's the ambience and so on, but one of the things that Hitchcock always did, and I think he did it in this one as well, is that when he had the final script, he went over everything once again and took out all the dialogue that wasn't needed or that he could tell with images, because he was very much a filmmaker. He wasn't he was a show don't tell filmmaker. And I think that he did that here as well. And there are a lot of stuff that you could have added things, and with dialogue and everything, that he just took out because he could show it with the images instead. But yeah, the Foley stuff, I didn't notice it, and I didn't care about it. So yeah, but then again, that's why we love movies. We have different opinions, even though yours is wrong.
Whatever. You can barely hear any difference if I turn the sound off anyway, because you have no ear for sound anyway. But there is actually, I didn't dislike any of that at all. But the only thing that I outright disliked, not for the idea itself, but because I felt it was very clumsy, when the girl or the woman dies at the beginning. He gets very paranoid, he looks out the window and he's trying to escape, and he holds up the map and he sees her superimposed half body repeating the information. And I know why he's doing it. It's to repeat the information. You need to go here and do this. You need to go to Scotland because, yada yada. And it's a cool idea, but it just comes across as very unnecessary and clumsy to me. It doesn't need to be there.
The second and third time I agree with you. The first time it's fine, and then it comes back, and then it comes back, and the last one it stays a little long. I can agree with that. That's one thing that I would say doesn't work fully.
Maybe
but
was,
this is also. I'm sorry.
I was just maybe either it wasn't his idea to repeat the information, or maybe he wanted to try some sort of optical technique. I don't know.
I think it's probably the latter, but I don't know.
Well,
now we have talked a lot. Yeah.
I was gonna say like that floating head thing, like that gets used a lot. I feel like in those older movies, like Night of the Hunter did that. Dune, the David Lynch film, like that's how it starts. It's just like this floating head in space, just giving you dialogue, explaining everything. Like I don't know why that was always used, just floating heads.
I think it's a little difference to call Dune an older movie when we're talking about one from 1935.
Well,
but yeah, I get what you mean.
Not as old, but I just mean like it was used before. What was it? It's 40 years old still, though. It's still pretty old.
So was that everything we had to say about this movie? Was there anything from all the others who loved the movie as much as me and didn't hate it like Benjamin? What was the one thing that you? Was there anything that you disliked or you didn't think worked, or is everything perfect? What do you think, Patrick and Mike?
I think that like the one thing, like I think the movie works pretty well. Like I see what Benjamin's saying with like the sound thing. Like I kind of felt that as well. Like I couldn't articulate it, but the whole time I was watching it, like I did feel like a weird disconnect with the movie. And then like having you explain it, I was like, I wonder if that's part of what it was. I had to watch it with subtitles too because it's just hard to hear what everybody was saying sometimes. I just feel like the very last shot where they're like going to hold hands, like that was a little like I would have been okay if they cut that part out. Because they never really like felt like they liked each other, and at the very end of the movie, it's like, yeah, they're probably going to be together for a little bit at least. But it didn't really feel like I don't know, like their like back and forth was always a little bit like kind of like off a little bit for me, like their chemistry.
What about Mike? What's your thoughts? What did you hate about it?
The chemistry, I thought it kind of built nicely. I liked the fact that it didn't start off with them whiz bang kind of already liking each other, and it had to I thought it was building nicely. There wasn't anything in particular that I strongly disliked. I think for me, when it was the reason I gave it a 3.5 is because I think that was the kind of movie it wanted to be. I don't think it wanted to be something deeper in a weird way. Like, and I don't mean that as I think, I'm looking at my bookshelf right now. One of the titles that's looking at me is a James Bond book called Moonraker. Moonraker is a good version of what a spy novel is. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's not trying to, it's trying to deliver on the premise, and it delivers. And it doesn't, it's not deeper than any other spy novel. It's not more ingenious than any other spy novel. But if you like spy novels, you read it, you're going to get what you paid for, so to speak. And in a weird way, that's what I sort of felt with this one. It was like it delivered exactly what I expected it to. It might be that maybe like, Patrick mentioned, I'm such a fan of Hitchcock that I kind of knew a lot of his tricks going in. So it was kind of like going like, oh, I wonder if he's going to do this. I wonder if it's going to tie into that. And like I was already kind of connecting dots to other films. So maybe in that sense there was more expectation, but it delivered in the way that I thought it was. I didn't think it would be. I know it's weird to say I didn't think it would be better than it was, but I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as I knew exactly the type of movie that it was going in, and it did it. Like, and I was like, cool, okay. Like, you know, so no, I didn't really, there was nothing that really disappointed me in the film that much.
No, and
that makes sense. Like having that expectation for a film and just going like, yep, it met my expectations. Like,
yeah. And it's like you said as well. I mean, it's not his best film. This is my favorite of his films because it's what created my love for Hitchcock. But it's not his best film, and it's not even, I would say, not even close to his best film. But it's just one. Yes, exactly what you said. It's here that he kind of finds his style and what he develops into being the big ones that he made 15, 20 years later. And it started here. This is where you kind of see what's going to happen. And that's as a Hitchcock nerd and a film nerd, it's kind of fun to see. And especially then when you also know what he did for the film business with his innovations and so on. And he starts already here trying. Everything doesn't work, like the floating head thing. I agree. It doesn't fully work. I think the girl in the beginning who dies, that's very theatrical death. And that's fine. It's 1935. Who gives a shit? I don't. But yeah, it's like you said. It's exactly what you expect it to be, and it delivers in spades. And I love it probably more than it deserves. But it's a history thing for me. So yeah, I just adore it.
I wanted to. There was one thing where, and this is going to be a compliment to the movie, although it's not gonna sound like that at the beginning. But with these types of stories about an innocent man getting caught up in a conspiracy or whatever, it's usually a very average man. The main character in this movie is not an average man whatsoever. He's very well educated. He's extremely suave, extremely well spoken. And I don't mean that in a bad thing, but he's definitely not an average man in any capacity. And I didn't find it bad or distracting or anything. But I kept wondering, why does he need to be this suave? Obviously because he needs to manipulate people without even trying. But eventually we get to this. He's in the assembly hall, and he has to convince everyone at the spot that he is. I guess someone arrives later, and he has to convince them that he's that person. And all he has to do is just bullshit for the entire scene. And if they didn't present him as super suave and very intelligent and well-spoken at the beginning, that scene would not have worked at all, because it wouldn't have been believable that he could do that. And it's my favorite scene in the entire movie, mostly because it's just really funny, because he has a banter with the audience. Like, they tell him jokes and he answers them, and he tells them a joke in return. It's very funny and it's very well shot. And I also like how the scene begins where he just wanders in because he's trying to run from the police. It's by pure chance. And he gets into the hall, and the camera's very close on him. And then it just zooms out, or rather it dollies back. And he sees it's full of people. And all he can do is just look around and then try to subtly sit down without anyone noticing him. And then whoever's talking starts talking. And I don't know, it just made me think about how my predisposition about just questioning, why does he have to be like this? He's not an average person whatsoever. Well, if he wasn't, then half the movie wouldn't work at all. And also, one thing I found out about the movie that I like, which also it's also a compliment to Hitchcock. It seems to be a very early movie, not the first one. I don't believe it is. But there is a helicopter or a gyrocopter in one scene. And I can't actually remember if I've ever seen a helicopter in a movie from the 30s ever.
We looked it up. Helicopters was invented in 39, so it's not a helicopter.
Well, I said gyrocopter, so it's a very early.
Yeah. So
does this make
we
it
had the same thought. And about that scene as well, there is. I also love the fact that he goes in there to escape capture, and then when he starts speaking, he's trapped. Because everybody comes in. It's not the police, but it's the bad guys. They find him there, and they just go according to the on the side of the room, and he knows that as soon as he stops talking, he's going to get caught. So he has to try to continue, but he can't because he has to. Someone else is going to talk after him. So it's a very, very special, also very typical Hitchcock thing. It reminds me of the scene in The Birds where we shit some waits for the school to be end, and the bird just comes back. She's they come and put on what's it called? I lose the words. The bird just flocks on perch, and it's all of a sudden it starts with one, and then there are three, and then there are five, and then everything is full. It's kind of the same thing, that he's trapped, and he's there and he's safe, and then all of a sudden he's not safe, and it just builds up. I think I love that. And then also one thing that I want to say that I forgot is on the train when he first sees the girl who becomes the main girl. Spoilers, where he kisses her and tells her, "Please help me," and she doesn't. I love that, because in a normal movie she would help him, or he would help her, and here it's just that I think this is the guy you're looking for. And I love that because it's so different from a typical movie like this.
Yeah, that's what reminded me of the film noir thing, because in a lot of film noir films, the girl is hip to what the guy is doing. Even if she may fall for him at the end. Again, I think of the Maltese Falcon. I can't remember who it is. Is it Lauren Bacall in the Maltese Falcon? I can't remember.
I don't think so.
But whoever it is, I can't remember. I think that's The Big Sleep. Actually, is Lauren Bacall. But she's
Mary
hip.
Astor.
She's hip to what Philip Marlowe is doing in the Big Sleep. She knows he's trying to seduce her. That makes it more fun. It makes me not feel bad for her in a weird way. Like sometimes in these films, I feel like he's such a cad that like I feel kind of icky about these women who just kind of keep falling for him. But like this time, she's like, no, she got him. She's like, no, I'm not doing this. That made it more fun. It made it more. It's funny. As you were talking, Benjamin, about him being, is he an average guy or not? I realized the thing that hooked me was not so much was he an average guy, but the fish out of water aspect of him. Because you're right, he is sophisticated, but his sophistication doesn't help him in the situations he finds himself in up until he reaches that moment where he has to convince the crowd. And I think that's where the sense of normalcy comes in. It's like, oh, he doesn't know what to do. He has no idea how to move through this situation and what the next steps are. And that was, again, interesting to me. That's where the kind of refreshing, the more what I was calling ordinariness of him comes out. I guess maybe more is more of a fish out of water thing.
That's kind of the thing as well with his later movies, like in North by Northwest, where Cary Grant plays. I think he works in a what you call it. He commercial. He makes commercials, PR person, and he gets fired, and he's normal guy, but he's played by Cary Grant, so he's fucking suave and charming. So yes, that because he's Cary Grant. So yeah. I can talk about Hitchcock all day, and we shouldn't do that.
Patrick? Are you next?
For what?
For the next movie topic.
Oh.
Because I think Benjamin did Lawnmower Man, which was before we did the Oscars and before we did the reviews of last year's film. I think it was Benjamin, then Matthias, and I think now it's you.
All right. I'm going to have to think about what to make you guys laugh.
All right.
Or
Well, if we have nothing else, then we can just end it, I guess.
well, I mean, like so.
Just like have a.
So let's just for fun though. I was thinking about this too. Like, I want to hear your three top three Hitchcock films. Because I've only seen this and I've only seen Psycho. So, what would you recommend people watch? Or what are your personal favorites?
The ultimate film to watch is North by Northwest, I think. Yeah, I think it's his best film. And then it's Rear Window. And to not say Psycho because you've already seen it, I would say... oh, no, I forgot the title of it. Hold on, I'm going to give you a third one. The others can talk first.
Well,
for me, Rear Window is my absolute favorite of his. Top of the line, it's Rear Window for me. Then afterwards, the two that are coming to my mind right now, but it might be the ones I've seen most recently other than this one, are The Wrong Man. And I really like Suspense. Or, is it called Suspense? I think it's called Suspense or something.
I think it is, yeah.
You know, from
which one?
No, I want to say 43 or something like that.
There is one called Saboteur from 42. There is nothing called Suspense, I don't think. What's it about? It's about a man who's innocent for a crime he's not committed. And
well, all I remember is that it's one of the things that got me into it is that it's Hitchcock said it was his favorite film.
Shadow of a Doubt.
Shadow of a Doubt, right? Not Suspense. Shadow of a Doubt. That was it. So those are the three that kind of come to my mind. I'm going to throw a bomb in here. I did not like Vertigo. I thought Vertigo was very boring and overrated. I did not. You know, I
think it's great, but it's far from his best one, I think.
Yeah.
I would put, I would say North by Northwest, Rear Window, and A Lady Vanishes, or The Lady Vanishes is a favorite of mine. And Dial for Murder. Sorry.
Oh, Murder, that is a good one too.
I'm looking them up now, so let's see. Because he, he's made around 1,000 movies, but
he made 53 movies.
Yeah, well, give or take. Let's see here. I believe the one that it's well, my favorite is always going to be Psycho because it's the first one that I saw, but one that I found to be that I liked quite a lot, and I find underrated is Marnie. I really like that a lot. I really, really like it. And we have Topaz, or however you pronounce it, which a lot of people consider to be his last great movie. I think. Really?
The last great movie is Frenzy.
Oh. Well, that's the one that I meant. So I said the wrong one. I meant Frenzy.
So you meant Frenzy, but you said Topaz. Okay,
yes.
Frenzy. Yep.
And for a third one, well, I was gonna say Saboteur because I really like it. It's the same thing as the 39 Steps, with a man on the run from a secret agency or whatever. Although I think Saboteur is much better. Actually, if you had to pick between 39 Steps and Saboteur, I would probably give Saboteur instead.
Legit.
Yeah, good.
So basically, between the three of us, the next one you should see, Patrick, is I think Rear Window, because I think that was the only one we all kind of hit.
Yeah.
At different levels. Like Rear Window would be the one to go to. Jimmy Stewart is excellent in that film.
Yeah, there is also the famous scene in North by Northwest where a child covers his ears when there is a shot to be shot before the shot is actually fired. That's very fun. So yeah. Anyway, as I said, I can talk all night.